Welcome back to the Have Not Room. I am joined by Brian and Chad, and we are finally back to talk about Big Brother 24. It's been a bit of a struggle between my internet and just like scheduling issues where we keep on putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. But the season got interesting, so we needed to get back and talk, and we are doing this now just hours before a potential huge blindside vote is going to go down. Possibly one of the biggest blindsides that we've had on Big Brother US in years. So a lot of fun to talk about. We had a great episode last night on Wednesday, and we have possibly one of the most interesting seasons we've had in at least a few years at this point. So, Chad, what are your thoughts here? I know we have it's been a while since we've talked here, and there's a lot to go over. But what are your immediate thoughts right now?
Yeah, I just caught up on the episode today, so it's finally some good Big Brother. I mean, I know we were texting like, "Oh, this is gonna be another season like this," but
Mhm.
Connor surprisingly saved the season, which I never thought I would ever say those words.
Yep.
But no, this is good Big Brother. This is what we came here to talk about. You know, good gameplay and not just another season where a majority alliance just completely rolls over the house in the beginning. But we've had like three alliance shifts. It's been girls versus boys, except the boys don't even view it that way. And then the leftovers coming together is just like such an awesome alliance, and everything with Taylor, which is like just awful. I'm kind of glad she's getting a little redemption and in a pretty good spot in the house right now, I'd say. So I don't know. I'm glad it really turned on a dime, and since Turner became HOH, it's awesome.
Yeah. All it took was your winner pick pooch going out,
See,
and you know.
I'm will- I'm willing to make the sacrifice.
Look, I'll preemptively say, Brian, no matter what goes on, we're gonna grant you the win here on this winner pick thing, right? I know I personally am not rooting for my winner pick at this point, and
Mm.
am definitely hoping that he gets evicted next week. So, regardless, I think that we're gonna come out of this Brian on top.
Man, yeah, it's a rough, through only fault of himself. Daniel has had a rough week from just a very, very strange and aggressive, like, confrontation to Taylor, which was shown on last night's episode. I think that was a good, like, example to show because it really, really, like, just kind of showed how ridiculous Taylor has been treated. Um, and it was like well edited. Well, I mean, they left one part out where Nicole was crying because the diary room was like, "Can you
Sure,
please
but they
stop
can't.
being mean to
Yeah,
Taylor?"
they're
But
never gonna show that though.
yeah, they were gonna show that. But yeah, it was good because Taylor pretty much this whole season has not been doing anything to antagonize anybody intentionally, and yet she's been faced with these really horrible situations. And like, I think anyone can put themselves into her shoes and just like feel so bad for her having to face this kind of stuff. And that scene was rough to watch for sure.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I think we've all had moments in our lives where like we don't expect something confrontational and then we walk into a situation and it's confrontational, and that's never a good feeling. So I think can all relate to that. And it just like, I don't know, I just feel so bad for Taylor having to deal with this kind of stuff. Luckily it does look like things are going to turn around, but it doesn't change the fact that she had to go through this for like what, 3 4 weeks at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like the show hasn't really up until that point like shown the full extent of kind of Taylor's situation. But this has been the situation for her from like basically hour one, and like even the last time we spoke was like 2 days after the feeds came on or something like that, and we were already mentioning this stuff happening then. So like this isn't like new,
Mm.
um, and Paloma and Miro to a lesser extent, and also Jasmine were some of the big people pushing it at that point. And then at a certain point, people like Monty at that point, and then uh, now Daniel and Nicole kind of jumped on that as well. And we even saw kind of a show edited version of that consequence early on, uh, where Taylor came to Monty in good faith and warned him about Paloma targeting the guys. He assumed that she was lying because that was after they had kind of started putting together what would ultimately be called Pose Pact, but at that point was called Mamba. And he trusted Paloma, who was openly lying to him, over Taylor, who was trying to give him a heads up. Uh, and a lot of that was to do with the social isolation and false rumors and just like kind of relentless trash talking that was done behind Taylor's back for weeks.
Mm.
And so yeah, this was kind of the first time the show really kind of leaned into, okay, we have to show something here because like this is extremely like first of all, like the the edit they showed of Taylor asking Monty to do a prayer while Daniel and Nicole were in the other room, saying Taylor is a bad person. Like that wasn't even edited that way to like be intentionally like, oh, these two crazy things happen simultaneously. No, those two things literally happened simultaneously on the feeds. One like on one side of the feed, you saw Taylor asking Monty to do a prayer, as on the other side of the feed, Daniel and Nicole were in the back room saying, "I don't think Taylor is a good person." Like that was like they didn't even need to edit it. It was pre-edited based off of how it happened on the feed. So like
Mm-hmm.
just how absolutely ridiculous that whole situation was, and how like needlessly cruel Nicole and Daniel are to her in this moment. Just like I don't
It's just
know what
like,
else to say.
and I think it summed it up. But it's just like, as someone who's not like a Big Brother historian, more of like a casual fan who, I really have emphasized on the show, like, I like personalities and watching players, and I root for who I actually like in the house.
Mhm.
Um, but this house just like sucks. Like honestly, like there's so many bullies. Like I mean, there's a handful of people that I do genuinely enjoy watching. Like of course, Brian's winner pick. Of course, Kyle and some of the other guys. But like
Mm-hmm.
anytime Daniel and Nicole are on screen now, it's just like, and knowing everything going on in the background with the feeds, that they're just like bullies to Taylor for no reason, especially after a season where, without getting too into like the racial side of it, the cookout and everything, and everyone talking about the cookout even before the season started, like, there's going to be another cookout. But it's just like this girl was targeted day one because she's essentially just an attractive person, and that just like started it. And I think probably Paloma was a little jealous or something. I don't know, but like it's just been this like
That's what
piggyback.
Jenny said. We're three guys, so it's hard for us to say. But like, when Jenny like caught up, she was like, "I feel like Paloma was jealous of Taylor, and
Oh
how
yeah,
she
for
was
sure.
like getting attention from the guys." So, I think you're right there, Chad. At least that's what
Yeah, it's
Jenny
just
says.
it's such like a petty thing that they've just like made Taylor this like punching bag for the house,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like it shows a lot of people's true colors when they just like bully, especially what Daniel did and Nicole. It's like the girl was outside praying for you because she thought your mom was sick, and you're here like trash talking her. Like it makes me think, like, did they actually have that conversation where Taylor was like, I thought like something happened with your mom, I was praying for you, but it seems like they just like writ her off, and Taylor's like, I have no idea what I did. Even half the house was like, I don't know why they're bullying you, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It sucks to watch. I mean, it's good TV, it's entertaining, but like Jesus Christ, it's
Well, it's good TV because there's the other shoe dropping of the leftovers forming, and now we're sitting here, and Daniel and Nicole in an hour to an hour and a half are about to get blindsided horrifically, as is half of the house, primarily the people who had been mostly being the ones who were doing this stuff to Taylor. And Taylor's in a good spot now, and Daniel and Nicole are the primary targets headed in next week. So that's, I think, why we could watch last night's episode and enjoy it as like a piece of television, despite like that scene being like very difficult to watch
Yeah.
is because there's a payoff and we know that Daniel and Nicole are going to get their comeuppance, right?
Oh yeah. I can't wait till like watch this season and where we see some sort of like apology at the end of it. It's just gonna be
Uh,
like half-assed at best, and we're just gonna be like, ugh, just go away. But
I mean,
yeah, because if there weren't going to be a blind side, if the shoe wasn't going to drop, it would just be BB21 again, which
mhm.
was a
right.
really tough season to watch. Um, Up until when, or what were they called, the six shooters? Up until
Yeah.
when they broke up, it was pretty much just like an uncomfortable experience. And then it got a little less and a little more interesting, but like I didn't want to have to wait for the big alliance to break up on this season for it to get good, you know?
Yeah. And even with BB21, where we had Nicole, who was like the fan favorite, and then Cliff to a lesser extent, both go very deep into the game and both like have super like get super close to winning. Like
Mm.
neither of them won, but they both got very close to potentially winning the season. Like that was essentially two players, and they were forced to align with people who were still being kind of hateful and cruel in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. It's just that they realized that it was in their best interest to align with Cliff and Nicole. Whereas here, we have people like Kyle and Turner in particular, and Joseph as well. Monty to a lesser extent, but those three as well, making a concerted effort to point out the bad treatment and try and be kind of a counteract to it and correct it. And we know because we haven't seen the veto ceremony yet, but we know that in the veto ceremony speech, Turner specifically calls out the bad treatment of Taylor
Mm.
to the House. So I think that kind of gives the way that this is happening. It makes it a little bit more enjoyable than anything that happened in BB21 for sure. Even though there were like great moments in BB21, despite its kind of
Yeah, no,
shadiness
there definitely
overall.
were. There was some very good gameplay and great moments, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think too. It's just been a weird experience, but I think we're coming out on the other side now that we're back. Oh, knock on wood, we're not going to take another 3 week break between now and our next episode. We have a lot of potentially fun Big Brother going down. I saw someone compared what Danny and Nicole will be doing to when Fessy and Haley were like on the bed, like just recounting all their missteps and how
Mm.
everything went wrong for Faute. They're going to be doing that for their alliance, which should be interesting.
Oh yeah, no. Daniel and Nicole are 1,000,000% going to make this blindside about them.
Mhm.
They're going to that's their MO is making everything about them, even if it is not about them at all. So yes, they are going to, you know, they're going to somehow increase the negative attention towards them, just by being like, oh my God,
Oh,
this
I
was
love it.
definitely not us. We had nothing to do with this, even though they've been talking for the last 2 days about wanting to throw pity votes in Terrence's way, and
Mhm.
everybody in the house knows this. So they're going to
Right.
be the first people that everyone looks at.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Terrence is going to be in an interesting spot. One, because, he is aware that he's staying.
Yeah.
But two, like, what's he gonna do? Like, he said he's not gonna be safe necessarily, which I of course thought that it was gonna be like BB13,
Hmm.
where like when your partner gets out, you get a pass
Hmm.
to the jury. That doesn't seem to be the case. I don't know if they're gonna be like bigger bestie groups or what's gonna happen here. But yeah, no, he's in an interesting spot, and I think it's always harder for like the older guys, and a lot of times too. And I relate to this now as someone pushing 30. Sometimes you just want to go to bed early, and a lot of the people on Big Brother stay up real late, and that's tough. So you lose out on a lot of like social interactions early on, and that become important. But I'm excited to see if he can kind of like take this and like run with it a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah.
Feels
I
like
mean,
feels like an early jury, mid jury guy.
yeah.
You know.
I agree.
Yeah. That's the upside of him. Yeah.
That's like upside, yeah.
Yeah, I think his ceiling is probably second place. But
Mm,
that's I think even very
That's
unlikely.
yeah.
right.
But you never know. He has in the last like 24 hours been doing more. He's realized at this point that Daniel and Nicole are like selfish players who are not going to ever actually, stick up for him when, when the rubber hits the road. And he's been trying to pull himself in with people like Turner and Kyle and like Joseph to a lesser extent. So there's a chance that he could be essentially used by the leftovers, or at least by the pound, going forward, as like some kind of leverage towards them creating like more of a long-term plan beyond the leftovers.
Mm,
So that could be an interesting way that that plays out. I do think that the work that the leftovers have been doing to essentially poison Terrence against a lot of the previous old school people, in particular Daniel and Nicole, really kind of locks them in pretty much any instance for them to like. I would say that right now the leftovers have a decent chance of all making jury at this
mm,
point. I think the
Yeah.
only way that could really go wrong is something like maybe an Alyssa HOH that could put up like Monty and Joseph, and then
mm.
they don't have them or the people who get picked by the veto win, uh, because the issue is if the pairs stay the same, because we don't know how it works. Maybe the pairs will shuffle tonight. Um,
Yeah.
uh, if the pair shuffle tonight, that's probably even better for the leftovers, actually. But if the pairs don't shuffle, we were told on last night's episode that if either of the people who are on the pair that wins the veto want to use it, then it gets used. So if the non-Joseph and Monty pair that's in the veto presumably will contain at least one leftover member win, then that person who's in the leftovers will just choose to use the veto, and they'll still have the votes to save whoever goes up on the block instead, presumably. So the way that this twist works out, it's actually very difficult for the previous old school people to even accurately take a shot at the leftovers, and that's with them having the information that the leftovers exist.
I was about to ask, like, do they even have any idea that this is
No,
happening? Yeah. It's
no.
going to be chaos
Oh,
after
one
this
million
vote.
percent. Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah. Can you kind of walk us through that a little bit? Like, what are. So, we assume there's going to be a blind side. I mean,
Yeah.
I was looking at updates, like, even from, like, 10, 15 minutes ago. Amir's, like, talking
Mm-hmm.
a big game about not packing and not
Yeah.
leaving and making the jury.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough. Will CBS just send her on her way with nothing if she doesn't pack and just be like, well, good luck out there? Like,
Um, no,
Yeah. They'll
they,
pack a quarter after.
no, well, I mean, what could happen? So, like on a double eviction, for instance, when people are evicted and don't have their stuff packed, the rest of the house guests are instructed to pack their things up for them. So if Amira does leave things behind because she's like cockily not packing everything together, then that'll probably happen. But yeah, yeah, like you said, the feeds just went down like 15 minutes ago for the eviction taping, uh, and Amira at this point still thinks that she's safe. Uh,
amazing.
and yeah, she had a conversation with Terrence where she was like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not 100% sure, but I mean, this is Amira essentially like, give in her mind giving Terrence some, like giving him like some hope."
Hmm.
But from my perspective, Amira
Just,
100% thinks at this point that she is staying. Obviously, the leftovers are doing some like kind of crazy gameplay right now that was like kind of kicking off right as the feeds cut that we can talk about, that may expose the blind side before it happens. But I think that very, very likely the majority, or not the majority of the house, but like, the most of the people outside of the leftovers, including Amira, will be blindsided tonight.
Love
Nice.
it. Love it. It's been a long time since we've seen an eviction night blindside.
Mhm.
You know, probably like what BB20.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
literally, I can't think of anything in between.
Mhm.
Or last week if you're Pooch.
I mean, my reading of the Pooch thing is he came into the eviction thinking he was going, but thinking that he had at least pity votes from people like Joseph and Turner, and then he heard that the vote was unanimous, and for a split second was like, "Oh, maybe I actually am good," and then it came out that he wasn't. He was like, "Oh, okay." That was my reading, but
Yeah.
this is definitely like you said, BB20, like with Faute who flipped. This
Who
is like,
flipped?
yeah.
Yeah.
This is that, right? This is like probably even more of a blindside than that because in that season, Faute knew that there was a split house. They just thought that they had the numbers in the split house, and so it was like one or two votes that they couldn't put together. Here, most of the house thinks this is going to be unanimous or close to unanimous. So
Man.
we'll see, and it's probably going to be 6-5,
Mm-hmm.
unless one of Daniel or Nicole throws a pity vote, in which case it'll be 7-4 or maybe 8-3. So yeah, definitely Amira blindsided, definitely Alyssa blindsided, definitely Jasmine blindsided, probably Indy blindsided, probably Daniel and Nicole blindsided.
Mm-hmm. Will Jasmine faint again? That's the real question.
Definitely Jasmine also put her on the list of could potentially make the blindside all about her for no godforsaken reason.
He's just so annoying.
Yeah.
I saw, I saw, I saw a tweet going around, or someone who claims to be like a member of production. Who fucking knows if that's real? We've all been through the Vegas saga back in the day, but they're saying that production is trying to get Jasmine to not use her scooter
Yeah.
anymore.
That's not even a leak. They're like
Yeah.
saying over the thing and to the DR in the DR to her, please try and walk on your ankle. Like it should be healed by now. We need to make sure that you don't have permanent damage.
Right? Yeah. No, that's a good point because they're like,
Uh,
yeah, if it's still hurt at this point, you may have broken something, and we
yeah.
have to make you go to the hospital. Then,
Yeah, and then you have the DQ.
yeah, exactly. I mean, she's an interesting.
She just like
Yeah.
I feel like she doesn't want to play because she does, and she's like, "Oh, I don't have to, so I don't want to." It's just
Yeah.
like, you say you're this big Brother fan, but you're doing everything in your power to literally just stay at a hotel for a summer and pray to God you don't get like kicked out because you're not paying the rent. It's like,
Mhm.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's also annoying as a human being, so it's like whenever she's talking, I'm just like,
What
shut
most
up
annoys
about-
me is just the hamming it up in the southern like accent in the diary room. I'm
Oh
just
my
like,
God.
I'm over that. I'm so over that. We had Frenchie last season. Now we got Jasmine this season. Both just hamming it.
Yeah.
Blindside Butterbeans. What?
do you
What?
think it's her, or do you
That's
think?
a Fed line.
Yeah, that's a Fed
Yeah,
line. But
I'm like, yeah. Do you
Yeah,
think
the-
production's just feeding her what to say?
Oh, for sure.
yeah, the diary room is
actually,
definitely like encouraging her accent. Because that's not her real voice, right?
Well, definitely she's exaggerating the accent in the DR 100%. But as far as the lines go, I actually am not 100% sure. Some of them are probably fed, but she's also talked today about wanting on the eviction show when she goes in to vote to tell Julie that she looks as pretty as a chicken wing in an air fryer or something like that. Which I don't know what that means. Or if she looks as hot as a chicken wing in an air, something like that. I don't know what the fuck the line is, but like
Damn, flirt alert.
maybe some of these lines aren't being fed to her because that seems like the kind of line that the DR would feed to somebody and be like, "Oh, this is funny. People will like this."
Well,
All I can think of is Polly being like, "Oh, this smells worse than the Jersey bathroom after a chicken wing eating contest,"
Yeah.
which is equally as perplexing a thing to say as what she's potentially gonna say. Like, what? Chicken wing eating contest? Oh man, yeah. I don't know. She's not my favorite house guest. I don't know
Uh,
if that's a hot take.
she's like
Not
equally bad. She's like equally bad as like Daniel Nicole, but in like the complete opposite way, where she's just flat out obnoxious. And
Mhm.
I hope someone has the right mind to just say like like in their goodbye speech to her, like goodbye, I guess you're roadkill or something like stupid
So
like that.
yeah, I take that. And I take the BB-19 say goodbye to Matt. Is like, what is it? Is like Matt, goodbye.
That was like Kevin, right? That was Kevin.
Yeah,
Right?
Kevin
Yeah.
said it to like Matt.
Uh,
Goodbye.
Bloody
man.
Just
legend
nothing
in the
else.
Yeah.
oh, Kevin.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be so sweet. Because they're already like turning on each other for what Turner said
Mhm.
in his veto speech about the bullying of Taylor, and they're like pointing fingers at each other. And now there's
Mhm.
gonna be a blind side with like a weird vote distribution. Oh, feeds are gonna pop off so hard.
Yeah. Dude, that's what's gonna be good about it. I mean, I feel like there's not a lot of like Big Brother villains anymore, and they're just like Big Brother bullies. It's
Mhm.
just I don't know when that shift happened, but it definitely feels like more modern Big Brother has been like that, where they're just like it's not even you're a villain and like being sneaky and making good moves behind people's back and lying to people. It's like it's more just like them telling people they suck or like outcasting Taylor completely. And it's just like that's not good Big Brother. But the outcome of it usually is, and it sucks. But that's what we need. It's just good Big Brother, and I want Big Brother villains back. Like when are we gonna get like another Doctor Will or like Chilltown or something like an
Yeah.
actual just like really good villain. Like Survivor has way better villains than Big Brother ever has. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Give me the Zach Rances again, where they're not like villains; they're just like fun. But like I don't know.
Well,
or
you can
like
watch BB Can 10. I'll tell you that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We need a new Dan who's like a
Yeah.
villain, 100%,
exactly.
but like he's an evil genius and like
Yeah.
entertaining and fun.
Yeah.
Which maybe Kyle can be that. You know, he's
Mhm.
pretty smart.
Yeah.
He's like pretty conniving. So that could be our next like best hope here. And I don't like. I just thought Kyle was gonna be like a goofy like, he's a TikTok dancer with his mother. He's like a very religious dude. I did not see like this type of gameplay coming out of Kyle.
I didn't either. I thought he
Yeah.
was
No.
good.
Yeah. Well, technically, he is ex-Mormon. To be fair,
Oh, okay, all right.
he is. And one of the other famous ex-Mormons we have currently on reality TV back again on Wednesday nights on CBS in Tyson Apostle as also kind of a fun villain.
Yes.
There are,
Great villain.
some parts of his, Survivor history are a little bit mean-spirited, but you could say. But overall, I would say he's kind of a fun villain. And I definitely think Kyle has like a less mean version of Brett upside potentially in terms of like long-term villain archetype, where playing a really solid game, I would say Kyle's like probably one of, if not the best player right now in the house.
Mhm.
He's probably the person you can most directly credit with the formation of the leftovers here, and like driving a lot of the strategy for the alliance. He is
Right.
wildly chaotic. Today, well, first of all, like the way that he's handling Alyssa, and even trying to get Alyssa out potentially as early as next week, so that he can avoid going on the block next to Daniel, is crazy. Where he's just leading her on essentially in order to extract information from her. And then today, he constructed a plan to try and cause chaos right before the eviction, which is what was starting to happen right before the feeds cut, where he had Taylor talk to Terrence and say that Taylor overheard a conversation with Kyle and Amira in the storage room where they talked about postpack. And so Taylor told Terrence about this conversation and said, there's an alliance called postpack with Kyle and Amira in it, and Jasmine is not involved for sure. Alyssa is not involved for sure. Indy is not involved for sure. Daniel is not involved for sure. So, Terrence, you should go to those people and tell them and start to pitch this. And eventually, Terrence does go to Daniel, tells him this information. Now, Daniel already knows about Postpack, even though he's not in it because Nicole has told him. But this is, information that could potentially create chaos further. There was about to be a conversation with Joseph that was going to further potentially throw this off a ledge right as the feeds were cut. So this was primarily a Kyle plan that he came up with, and because he's like got this Littlefinger-esque chaos as a ladder strategy
Yes.
where he just wants to create as much noise as possible around this blindside so that the people who are blindsided have no footing to actually understand what's going on. And I'm all here for it. And we talked over text about how he has wanted to do like fake whispering during the eviction tonight to make it seem like the vote is flipping at the last minute to create even more chaos, so people are even more confused. So yeah, like I'm loving Kyle. Like Kyle has vastly exceeded my expectations. He's like creating good TV, creating good feeds. He's playing hard and always trying to improve his position, even when it's already in a good spot. Like Kyle of the leftovers was already in probably the best spot, like maybe Michael as well. But he was actually sitting kind of pretty with post-pack, at least for the short term. But he looked at the like long-term longevity of his game and was like, yeah, I'm in a pretty good spot, but I could be in a better spot. And especially with the information Alyssa gave him in that shower conversation, where Alyssa was drunk and horny and spilling all of the information about old school and about Amira's game, Kyle was like, okay, here's my opportunity to flip the house and become what Amira was, which is the person who's kind of secretly running the show. And he did it flawlessly. So I'm very impressed. I'm excited to see how he does this season going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it on this show, on our Survivor podcasts, the Blindsiders. If you're a player in these games, you need to approach it like this is the one and only chance in your entire life that you're going to get out here, and you should be constantly reevaluating where you stand in the hierarchy of power. And if it's not where you want to be, start trying to do something, because at the end of the day, there's only one winner. You're probably going to lose regardless, so you may as well go out trying, whatever you can to win.
Play the game. Have fun with it. Like, take those chances. Even I think everyone just like wants to play it safe for as long as they can until they actually have to try. And then it's like, especially in like Big Brother, like sometimes it's too late and you don't have a shot anymore.
Yeah, you'll never know. You'll never know when the moment is slipping through your fingers until it's gone and you're meeting
until
Julie Chen.
Until you're sitting on the block post veto. It's like, well, shit.
Like it's just yeah. So I love this. I'm a huge fan of Kyle right now. I'm thankful that he decided to make the game more interesting for us as people who cover it and just as fans of the show.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you, Kyle.
Joseph as well, but obviously Joseph was in a much worse spot than Kyle was before this week, so he had it was a much easier sell for him to make a move like this. But obviously, like Joseph and Turner going along with this plan and noticing that they needed to make a move like this as well. Like basically everyone in the leftovers being able to make the kind of like self-evaluation that they needed to make this move in order to improve themselves. Just really, really good stuff. Like we talk, like we've been covering the show now on this podcast for a few years now, and like this is basically the move that every single season we get frustrated that people aren't making, right?
Yeah.
Like this is like what we keep yelling at our computer screens for people to do, and finally on this season they did it. So I can't be any happier, right? So,
or they like talk about it all the time. Like, oh man, maybe I should, and then they just don't do it because it's too risky. It's like, who gives a shit? Just do it. Like, if it works, then you get what you want, and people usually forget about it the next week anyway, depending on who's HOH. So it's like,
And quite frankly, if it doesn't work out, but you try, but it doesn't work, and you get out, Twitter and the online fan base will love you anyways. So, that's pretty positive. You can sell whatever MLM stuff you need to on Instagram after this season from that.
Yeah.
I assume that's what still happens.
Me teas.
Yeah. Skinny teas.
Yeah.
NFTs. Right? But probably NFTs.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there's a Big Brother NFT scheme out there if we looked hard enough.
Well, there was a Survivor one, right? So
There was.
Man. Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of where we kind of left off. Yeah, I mean, the chaos that came after the blindside that we're going to see tonight primarily was fueled by Nicole, I would say, because Nicole is just a very dramatic person, as we've seen. She likes to make every situation about herself and try to create hysterics around it, because that's how she gets her kicks.
The ideal personality you want from someone enforcing the law. At one point in her life, that's great. I'm glad she decided to become a chef, because Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'm glad she switched careers and not putting a bad name on my career path.
Now she's just using knives and not guns, at least.
Right, yeah. That's
True.
We'll take that. But yeah, no, I mean, it definitely, like, I don't know if this is mean to say, fuck it. I'll just say it. Like, her reads are so bad on people that it makes me, like, nervous that she was a police officer and, like, had the fate of people in her hands.
Well, maybe that's why she's not a police officer anymore.
It could be.
We don't know why she changed careers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, so the primary thing we saw is the two people taking the most heat outside of leftovers were Indy and Alyssa. Indy, because obviously the comment from Turner about people bullying Taylor couldn't be about Jasmine or Amira or Nicole or Daniel. It has to be about when Indy made a comment in the HOH room about how she wanted to throw soup in Taylor's face and called her a bitch, which was obviously really bad.
Yeah, insane thing to say you want to do, throw soup in someone's face, but
like mob mentality in this place.
So yeah,
it really is.
Everyone outside the leftovers basically agreed that the bullying comment was basically only about Indy, and they were all upset that Turner made that speech, but then didn't put the one bully, Indy, on the block.
Right.
And so they think that he probably is working with her and she has some kind of deal at first. So that would be the first instance of them not knowing what's going on. And then we had a situation in the backyard where Nicole was talking to Amira about not trusting Alyssa because Alyssa has a big mouth, which is true. Alyssa does have a big mouth, and that is the reason that this is happening in a lot of ways. And then Amira talks to Alyssa about this and basically tells Alyssa that people have this view of her. And then Alyssa says in front of Nicole that basically saying the same words that Nicole said to Amira back to Nicole. And then Nicole was like, okay, I have to talk to Amira and yell at Amira for telling Alyssa this information. And now Alyssa's going to go spread this all over the place. And it's going to come back and fall on me. And while all this is happening, and Nicole is mad at Amira and mad at Alyssa, Daniel is mad at Nicole because Nicole is dealing with this situation and not giving him attention. That's obviously the biggest issue here.
Yeah.
And so Daniel has a mental breakdown because he has to not talk to Nicole for 10 minutes while Nicole is dealing with something else.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It's very... I think they probably were like, oh shit, I don't want to be the bully, and they just like took that one comment and were like, yeah, this alleviates all of the guilt that I could feel by just pinning it all on Indy. I mean, what Indy said was fucked for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Shouldn't say that, uh, regardless of the context. But it's just like, wow, it's crazy to have done the things that a lot of these players have done and said, and to still just be like in complete denial of it. That's weird, right? That's like so
A
weird.
little bit. It's
Yeah.
just so personal. There's like nothing that Taylor has done game wise to ever even like come close to saying like I'm targeting these people. Even after all this crap, like it's like come on, man. I think they're just doing it to do it, and I totally get like no one knows how the Big Brother house is unless you've been in it, and it's stressful and there's a lot going on mentally, but I don't know. It just feels like they're taking a lot of aggravation out on Taylor, and she's an easy target to do it, and they're just going to keep doing it, and it's nothing to do with the game, everything to do with personal stuff, and it's just I don't know. It's just like it's not fun to watch, but it's going to be so fun to watch Daniel and Nicole finally get their comeuppance and end up on the block, or hopefully out pre-jury. Or I hope they're jury 1 and number 2. That'd be awesome.
They get to sit in the jury house and bicker with each other.
Oh, yeah.
More likely they'll be sitting at home bickering with each other.
I agree.
But yeah, I mean, and this is the thing, because I've seen like a couple of instances. It's not common that I've seen this, but I've seen a couple instances of people online saying like, "Oh, but it's good gameplay from Daniel and Nicole, or at least good gameplay from Nicole to continue to try to isolate Taylor." But it's not gameplay, and it's very obviously not gameplay from Nicole. She's like not doing it in a deliberate way for gameplay. From her perspective, when this blow up happened, which was pre-veto, she was under the impression that Taylor was going to go up and out regardless. So like doing something like this is just drawing more attention to herself when she's going to be sitting on the block next to Taylor. So like that would be upsetting the status quo of Taylor leaving, which is bad gameplay. And in reality, with how it played out, Daniel and Nicole are the primary targets headed into next week because of this blow up, and the leftovers came together partially because of this blow up, because Turner was having reservations about the plan because he wasn't sure if Taylor would run information back to Nicole because they were besties in the twist. And then this blow up happens, and Turner is like, "Oh yeah, no, Taylor is obviously done with Nicole. They're not going to talk ever again." And they obviously are not friends. So I feel perfectly comfortable bringing Taylor in now. And so like the only like the turning point for Turner being comfortable making this move was this blow up situation that happened. So this situation is basically directly responsible for Daniel and Nicole being the targets next week and this blindside happening on Amira. So it's not good gameplay. It's not even being done in the vein of it being gameplay. It's just personally malicious for the sake of being personally malicious.
Yeah, it's never good. It's so funny how like 2 weeks ago I thought like Daniel, Nicole, and Amir are all in a great spot, and now they could literally be going out the door in back to back weeks.
Well, first HOH seemed like he was in a good spot. Seemed like, as one of the older folks, one of the more mature people. And, granted, these are the second and third oldest people in the house, if I'm not mistaken, and they're like by far the most immature and childish. It's just like, come on, just leave the girl alone. Like, she's done nothing to you. If anything, she's tried to help you and talk to you and build relationships with you. But I don't know. I think we've beat this to a dead horse, and they're gonna go home. They're gonna feel how much Twitter hates them, and just probably make some half-ass. Yeah, they're gonna make some half-ass apology and just sink into their lives again. But
their apology is gonna be like, "I'm sorry you interpreted the feeds that way."
It'll be what Pooch said. It'll be the producers actually edited the feeds to make me look bad.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's how that works.
It's pretty crazy that like at this point in Big Brother, between Canada and America happening at the same time, that's like 30 plus seasons that people are still trying to be like, well, you don't know, it's just like a show, and you can't know what it was really like, and especially when like a lot of players have come out and been like, oh, okay, like yeah, the public seems to know very much what was happening in there. Like I it's only when people act very bad that they're like, yo, you don't know. Whenever someone's like a pretty like normal chill person who like played and is like decently liked, they're like, oh yeah, the fans seem to have a pretty good grasp on what the dynamics were in the house when I was in there. Crazy how
Also,
it works like that.
Yeah, it's also a show that's literally has live feeds and has episodes 3 days a week for what, 3 months? Like, people are gonna know what's going on in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, sometimes if you just watch the show, you won't know everything
Sure.
because they do cut. But like, the fans are so plugged in. Even like me, who like watches the live feeds occasionally, but I follow so many people on Twitter, and obviously we talk on the show, and we're always texting about it. Like, I feel like I have a good understanding of what's happening inside the house at any given time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for sure, and especially when we have day one live feed, so we don't even have like that few days to a week off at the start of the season. Like, we basically have live feeds from the second they move in. So like, we literally miss nothing.
Yeah.
And especially in Pooch's case, where I would argue the show edited him to look good and didn't show any of the horrible things that he did and said about Taylor at all on the episodes. For him to blame editing or the producers trying to make him look bad as to why people don't like some of the behavior he exhibited in the live feeds is it's insulting, I guess, to my intelligence, I would say.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I with Paloma as well,
Yeah.
where it's like, girl, they gave you such a nice edit compared to like the reality of the situation. You cannot be saying like, oh, you're only seeing an edited thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on.
Yeah, she was nuts. But yeah, I mean, as picking Pooch as my winner pick, I'm fucking ashamed. It's just like, that guy, I didn't realize how much of like a, for lack of a better term, douchebag he was. And just so bad and unaware. Like, the second he's like, I'm gonna go up, and it's fine. I'm just like, this is it. It happened to me again. I forget who it was last season who just, what was his name? Jerome? I don't even remember. The guy.
Jedson?
Jedson, yes, Jedson. I mean, he did the same freaking thing, basically, just self-evict himself. And I'm like, I did it again. I picked literally the best winner ever, and then the two worst picks ever, back to back. But
I mean, to be fair, at least Jed. Well, okay. Well, what Jed did was worse than what Pooch did. But Jed was also one of the better players that season and made it into a late game position where he could have won. And he could have still come back into the game. He almost, like, his throw almost got revoked if he didn't lose that buyback comp to Tara. But yeah, nominating your, like, without provocation at all, offering yourself up as a pawn week 2, when you're like a real juicy target and you're not in a majority alliance, because let's be clear, I mean, Pooch thought he was with the Oasis and like a solid alliance when Oasis was never a real thing, but like it's not good. Like, even accepting like, if somebody asks you, do you want to be a pawn, like, you kind of are forced into a corner where they're not really asking you, they're telling you, but they're being nice about it. But there's no reason to offer yourself up as a pawn ever for any reason, basically, at all. Like, it's just illogical gameplay, and yeah, Pooch kind of paid the price that somebody playing that badly deserves to pay, frankly.
Yeah, he looked good, and then he opened his mouth. But...
yeah, it was not great. I mean, I think you should just try to never be on the block. That's way more appealing than ever volunteering to go on the block. listen, all these future contestants, you need to like just accept you're not Dr. Will, all right? You're not gonna be able to skate by and like charm your way to the end and like go on the block and have nothing happen to you. You're gonna be like Pooch and get clipped immediately, and it'll be very embarrassing.
Yeah. And then the week after, everyone is going to refer to what you did as pulling a pooch and advise everybody else to not do it, which has
Yeah.
been happening in the house.
Yep.
Where people
It's-
have turned him into essentially a cautionary tale to not like be an idiot and throw for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason players like Dr. Will are held in such high esteem because what they pulled off is pretty insane, and it's not something any player can do.
Yeah, it's a specific cast, it's specific people, specific time. You know.
Yeah, that's a good
That
point
was-
too. Very different time in
Yeah,
in
it's
reality
very
TV.
yeah. I feel like nowadays it should be like more of like avoid the block, number one, and two, like just anyone but me strategy. Because like the past few winners, like you think of some of the good ones like Derek and Cody just as an example. They saw the block once towards the end, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think there's a trend there, being on the block less and winning the game, which is obviously the most obvious thing ever. But at the same time, like still, if you never hit the block, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Nicole F also. She
Yeah,
went
Nicole.
a long time. I don't know if it's Nicole F anymore. And she got married.
I don't know what the hell it is.
I don't know what her last name
I don't
is.
know. I don't know if she changed her name to Arroyo at all.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Mazel
Probably
Tov
not.
to Nicole and Victor. But yeah, no, I think just it should be obvious, but apparently it's not. Just try not to be on the block. You can't go home if you're not on the block. It's literally.
I
so
mean,
basic.
I get the whole like I want to show my alliance
Mm.
that I'm loyal, and it's part of like okay, if this is really an alliance, then I'm safe and I shouldn't have to worry about the votes. But it's like I feel like if it's me, I'm going on the block. You can't help but think like they're gonna at least think for a minute, like okay, what if we actually just voted this guy out instead? Like what would actually happen? And then that's just gonna snowball and snowball. So it's a real thing. And now you're going out the door, even though your alliance swore to you that you're safe. It's just like
Fuck that. Make them prove their loyalty to you. You don't
Yeah,
have to prove
exactly.
your loyalty to anybody.
Yeah.
ain't no
It-
betas, no betas in the have not room.
It was funny as well that we have Pooch sitting next to Taylor on eviction night week 2 and getting blindsided and leaving the house. And then this week, the plan was, in Nicole's eyes, for her to throw this veto so that she could sit on the block next to Taylor on eviction night. And who knows how that would have gone. You know, I don't think, you know, it wouldn't have really ever materialized in that way unless the leftovers just never forms. So maybe Nicole in that scenario is actually safe and the votes aren't there. But like, still, why is that a risk that you as Nicole want to take? Like, what value does that provide to you other than like fulfilling your fetish of like getting Taylor out of the house?
Mhm.
To me, it makes no sense early game if you're a strong player, physically, mentally, in a good social position in the house, or even one of those three things, and you're sitting next to someone who's hated by the house, or the old guy like Terrence, or someone who's they're not going to win a comp. Like, how could you even think that you're safe for a second? Like, I'd be shitting bricks. I'd be like, I'm a better player just overall than this person. It'd be smart to take me out now. That way I'm not a risk to anyone in the future. Because someone like Terrence, is he going to win a comp anytime soon? Probably not. He's not a big threat. You can get him out whenever you want. So it's like, Pooch next to Taylor was just hated. That doesn't mean you're at all safe. If anything, I feel like I'm a bigger target. I'm gone. So I don't understand how Amira even remotely thinks she's going to be safe sitting next to Terrence.
Well, the reason
It's
is
a
'cause
good
she
point,
doesn't-
Chad.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, she, in Amira's mind, right? Because she has very little information right now. In Amira's mind, she is essentially the fulcrum of two alliances, or like her and Alyssa, and to a lesser extent Nicole. are the fulcrum of these two alliances, where on one side she has Old School, which was not really shown on the show, even though the Big Brother account on Twitter tweeted out an alliance chart with Old School on it, which was cool. It was very nice of them to do that. It's very I'm definitely pro Big Brother account tweeting out accurate alliance charts. That's a very neat.
Yeah, it's the first time they've done that, huh? It's usually like what, Hamster Watch.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of fans who make alliance charts and stuff like that, but it's very interesting for the Big Brother account to tweet out a pretty accurate alliance chart. But in Amira's mind, she has Old School, which is essentially the 6 people outside of the leftovers that aren't Indy, right? So Indy's not involved in this alliance. So it's Amira, Nicole, Alyssa, Jasmine, Daniel, Terrence. And that includes this trio from the trio of women from Pose Pack. It includes the trio of Daniel, Nicole, Terrence, who before this week were a pretty solid trio, with Daniel and Nicole obviously being a duo, and they called themselves Night Shift, right? And then Jasmine is kind of like loosely attached to them via Amira primarily, and so they created this Old School alliance. And then they, in Amira's mind, she also has Pose Pack, so she should have at least 7 to 8 votes locked, right? Obviously, she doesn't, because she is not aware that the leftovers was formed. So I can understand to a degree if you think you have 2 power alliances and you're sitting at the fulcrum of that alliance, and you just have Turner, who seems to be off to the side, who just lost his #1 ally in Pooch, who has essentially nobody visibly, making what appears to just be kind of a random move from an emotional perspective. That's how it's kind of played off in the veto speech.
Yeah.
I can see being like, oh, okay, Turner just doesn't know what he's doing, and he just like made this move emotionally because he, wanted Taylor to be safe, and was like, okay, I guess I'll put up these 2 people instead. But like, I'm totally insulated by my people. And Turner doesn't know that because he's completely in the dark. So like, Terrence is just gonna go, right? I can see that. Like that's essentially what Amira's perspective is.
Yeah, I see the pitch. It's just, I don't know. I feel like if you're in modern day Big Brother, backdooring is like the #1 thing that everyone wants to do, especially early game. I feel like late game, it's kind of more the writings on the wall with things, but early game, it's especially, this is technically like vote off 2. It's like, I don't know. I wouldn't feel safe even if I felt like I was in a good spot at any time ever in Big Brother. I'd feel like I'd be like Kyle, where just like, okay, maybe I am safe, but I definitely could be better. But then you don't want to overplay, and that's the whole other conversation. But
right. Yeah, no, I feel I wouldn't be complacent. I could see myself definitely being someone who overplays himself out of a game, but yeah, no, I get what you're saying for sure, and I'm happy that Amira doesn't see it coming, because it's gonna be very fun tonight. It's gonna be so good.
I stand by. I don't think playing too hard is a thing in Big Brother, at least. I think that it's you only get in trouble if you play badly. Like, look at Kyle, for example. I would argue Kyle is playing the hardest out of anybody. He is doing all kinds of crazy shit for potentially not even any like feasible reason. And Kyle's in one of the best spots right now.
Yeah,
it's not about playing hard. It's about not playing badly. And Amira this week got complacent. We saw it in the diary room, and then also in the house. She said multiple times, "Big Brother," or up until at least she was backdoored. Big Brother is easy. I didn't expect it to be this easy. I really just don't have to do anything. She feels comfortable in her position, and she stopped playing. She stopped trying to form new relationships. She stopped reinforcing the relationships she already had with, for instance, the men in Pose Pack, and it created an opportunity for the men in Pose Pack to be like, hey, we actually don't have control in this alliance. Amira is running it, and she has this other contingency that's backing her, and if we run this down, she's going to turn on us. As soon as, like, in a week or two, Amira has been talking about trying to set up a situation where Monty or Kyle get targeted. And this, obviously, at some point, could get back to them if you're not careful with your information, if you let your relationship slip, and you get comfortable and you stop playing hard. Because when you're in a position that Amira was in a week ago, you have to continue to play hard in order to maintain that position. Otherwise, people who notice that you're in that position will start playing harder than you and supplant you, which is what Kyle did, in my opinion. So I think that it's not that Amira played too hard, or like, you know, was in too good of a spot or whatever. I think she got complacent, she stopped playing hard, and she allowed other people to outplay her.
Right.
Agreed.
All right. Is there anything else for this week?
I mean, I do want to. I mentioned this on Twitter. I do want to say on the podcast that obviously Paloma leaving or self-evicting week one did save Taylor technically, but I want on the record that based off of the competition that we saw with the balancing thing over the musical instrument gear stuff or whatever it was, that presumably was going to be the backstage competition that Julie explained. Presumably, Taylor would have gone up against either Alyssa or Paloma. In that competition, in that first round, she went up against Alyssa and utterly destroyed her, and it was not even close. So I would just like to put it on the record that even if Taylor was evicted normally and Paloma didn't self-evict, and she had to play in that competition, it appears she would be likely to have won it, and Alyssa, or probably, in my opinion, Paloma, would have still been the first person out of the house anyways. So, just to put that on the table, because, like, I know, like, obviously, like, the twist was really bad and stupid, in my opinion.
It was a dumb.
And as is pretty much every BBUS twist, as is this bestie twist, very bad and stupid. But Taylor would have been safe either way, in my opinion. And so, if Taylor does go on a run here from now with the leftovers, I hope that's not like a cloud over her gameplay or whatever, where it's like, oh, she was supposed to be evicted week one. It's like, well, I don't actually think she would have gone home week one based off of the twist.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if anything, I think it's a kind of a feather in her cap, because she came back from being literally ousted and bullied, and was able to stay mentally sound and strong, and put herself in a better spot. I mean, literally crawled back from the dead, like the dead years. So I don't know. I think she's playing great, and the way she's handling things, although she's obviously upset and crying, it's like she's not retaliating. She's not making herself look like an asshole in any way. You're just like, okay, I'm just gonna walk away and cry about it and then move on. So
yeah, and
the way she handled Daniel was great.
Oh, for sure. I mean, she's like she handled it better than I would have, and she she definitely even afterwards, where she was like, I know that Daniel is probably going to get torn apart by the fans for this, and I want to make sure that he knows that I still have his back and like stuff like that. And it's like, oh man, I would not. You're giving him way more grace than I would.
I don't know if you're doing this for your own good PR. Don't you look like a good person? But I think she's genuinely just like a good person, and it just sucks. Like, I think imagine if this was anyone else in that house. Like, imagine if they were doing this to. Imagine if they did to Pooch or someone like Monty. Like, I feel like they would definitely be hotheads about it.
But yeah, I mean, I do want to say that, like, as far as Taylor's game, there were, with this plan that enacted today, where Taylor was supposed to leak this like half fake info to Terrence to try to stir up drama. A lot of people were worried, and Taylor herself made a comment of being worried that this was going to blow back negatively on her and continue to spiral some kind of negative feelings from the people outside of the leftovers. But luckily, when Terrence relayed this information forward, at least from what we saw in the feeds, obviously, like, things could have changed after the feeds cut, but from what we saw in the feeds, when Terrence then relayed this information forward, he said, I think a person told me this, or like people have said to me that this alliance exists, or like that they overheard about this alliance and left Taylor's name out of it, which is very good, obviously, for her, that she was able to plant the seed for her alliance and then have the seed be planted further without her name being attached to it. So,
Yeah, very good.
All right. Anything else?
Right.
I think, obviously by the time you're listening to this, almost 100% by the time you're listening to this, you'll have seen the episode. Hopefully it's a good one. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't imagine it being bad. They'd have to massively screw it up to be bad.
Right.
DR would have to be like, Amir, you're going home, deal with it. But obviously that's not a thing.
Yeah. So, you guys want to shout out your social media here?
Yeah, Chad.
Sure. Yep. You can find me on Instagram at ChadleyJP and on Twitter at ChadPerry25. Right here somewhere.
You can follow me on Twitter at TheFakeBMar. That's BMARR. Then most of the time, I am over on the Wicked Good Sports channel. Chad also joins me during the NFL season, which is fast approaching. I'm so excited. He covers the Patriots for us. We cover all the major sports now. We actually have a baseball guy now. So now all the four major sports, we're making stuff happen. So if you've somehow gotten through this and are not tired of my voice, we have plenty more on that channel.
Yeah, and you can follow me on Twitter at Ben Sharon. I've actually been tweeting about this season. It's a surprise. I mean, there's obviously stuff to talk about, which is rare on Big Brother US these days. So you can follow me there. I'll probably be tweeting about this eviction or some of the fallout that happens afterwards when the feeds come back on tonight. You can obviously follow the main channel on Twitter at WG Everything, and then Wicked Good Everything on Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube, the main channel. And then this channel on YouTube is Better Radio. This is our podcast channel. Otherwise, you can find us on every other podcasting platform. We are the Have Not Room. We will be back hopefully next week.
One thing too, speaking of TikTok, we have a Have Not Room TikTok. So just
very nice.
Have Not Room for that. Sorry, I should have told you that before.
No, that's great. Absolutely. I think you mentioned it, but I didn't think to add it to the shout out, so I'll remember that for the next time. So you can check that out. We'll probably post some clips from the podcast up on there, some fun Big Brother stuff. And until next time, we'll hopefully have a lot of fun Fallout to talk out for next week. Until then, this is the Have Not Room. Enjoy the episode and The Blind Side.